we are going to talk about two products, BTS FREEEMG 100RT, our surface EMG, and BTS P6000, that is one of the newest system and elements of BTS. First of all, let's understand why it's so important and why the jump is a movement such investigated in the last years. In the sport field, it's really important to check constantly the physical athlete's condition. Why? In order to assess and plan trainings or therapies and to adjust and improve the performance. So depending on which is the condition of the athlete, we can decide to adjust our therapy, our treatment, or get a better performance. It's widely known that the execution of simple tests like squat jump or counter movement jump is a very powerful tool to assess the mechanical condition and the muscular quality of the athlete's lower limbs. So evaluating this kind of movement can give us information very accurate about the evaluation of the athlete performance. And if we think about the vertical jump, is a gesture, is a task that is highly influenced by biomechanical and neuromuscular features. So why evaluate jump? Because it's a very complex movement, and from this kind of movement we can gain a lot of several parameters and indexes that are really important to assess the performance, but on the other hand that are really closely depending on the technology available in the field in which we can do this kind of analysis. Of course, we have to think that working in the sport field is something that leads us to avoid very long preparation of the subject. So it needs to be something very quick to be applied over the athlete. So to get the best from your athlete and understand his physical condition, nothing is better than measure his performance and working on it. So we measure the performance, and then after we can do all the analysis that we want. But we want the analysis to be very quick and fast, not to make the athlete lose the time to train. Of course, the most complete analysis is composed by three groups of parameters: the electrical muscle activity, that can give us information about which is the timing of activation of the muscles involved, the kinematics parameters, so we know exactly which are the angles of the joints mostly involved in the analysis, and the kinetics analysis, so what happened while I'm this contact and entering contact, so landing on the ground. But as I was telling you, it's quite complex to understand such a complex movement, sorry for the repetition, so it's not always so easy and immediate to understand a complete report. This is the reason why we thought about different levels of evaluation of the jump. The first one that we are going to investigate today is the BTS 3D GVEX. So using this particular solution and system, we can make a very entry level as a screening test to understand which is the condition of the athlete while he's jumping. Then we have a second level of analysis in which we can make the conjunction between two different technologies. The first one, that is BTS FREEEMG 100RT, in which we can understand which is the muscular activity, and the second one that is still from the kinetic point of view, so our solution BTS P6000, that is related to the kinematic field. So let's start understanding what is BTS 3D GVEC. BTS 3D GVEC is a solution very easy to use to evaluate the dynamic, postural, and stabilometric subject's behavior. So we can think about this solution both for the clinical field, both for the sports field. Of course, today we are going through the sports side of this application. The test execution is very fast, do not require any preparation of the subject, and can be suitable and productive for a very wide range of application. In the sports field, it's very important to use, can be very helpful as a solution because it can support the lower limb biomechanical evaluation during all the phases, so the training plan, to provide data to make a better analysis performance, and to, for example, understand if there is any risk of injury over the athlete. Is a system composed by our new BTS force platform system, that is BTS P6000, at least two BTS fixed account, and a control station, so a workstation in which we can analyze these data coming from. On the other hand, we have our nowadays quite famous system, a surface EMG system. Our BTS FREEEMG 100RT is a complete wireless technology composed by 6 miniaturized probes with active electrodes weighing less than 9 grams, and working with a workstation using a USB receiver that can automatically and in real time analyze the data coming from the activity of the surface muscles. Of course, the fact that we do not have any cables and wires can make this analysis over the subject, over the patient or the athlete quite less distressful, because of course we do not have anything to do with all the wires that can make the movement less natural than what it is. How to use the two systems together? So we were thinking about the fact that we are talking about two systems that are native integrated. So BTS P6000 and BTS FREEEMG 100RT has born to work together. So they can work together, for example, assessing the jump performance. From this integration, of course, the application allows to automatically identify which are the phases of the jump and avoid the use of full switches that sometimes are not so easy and user-friendly to position. All this data together with the electromyographic signals allow a complete functional performance analysis. So, as I was telling you, we are going through a double practical session because we are talking about two systems that can work as a standalone solution or together. We are going through two different kinds of jump. The first one will be the counter movement jump. That is quite important because it's applied to assess the ability to get the maximum jump height by developing, storing, and reuse the elastic energy that we can absorb and create during the loading and exploding phase. It's very useful to assess the effect of the elastic recoil on maximum explosive power of the lower limbs, so it's a quite important exercise to be performed. It's a quite important test. In this case, this is the rule to follow to make a good counter movement jump. So we start standing with straight legs, and when the acquisition needs to start, we ask the subject to bend the knees up to 90 degrees and with the hands on the hips make the jump to go back to the first standing position. On the other hand, we are going to do also a squat jump to assess which is the explosive capability, the explosive force of the lower limb, because we need to think that in this case we do not evaluate which is the phase of the loading of the power to make the jump as high as possible. In this case, in contrast of the other condition, the subject starts with already bended knees at 90 degrees. He has to keep this static squat position for a few seconds and then make the jump and go back to the neutral position. What we are going to do, we start with the BTS 3D GVAC practical session, just to show you this screening application, because actually is more on the screening point of view than on the evaluation side. And we are going to use BTS P6000 that is composed by two BTS platforms. The subject is going to be asked to stand on these platforms and with 1 foot over each platform. So we can analyze the resultant of the jump or the two single components. It depends on what we want to look for. We will get the real-time balance condition during this jump. Of course, we can record the data and then analyze the data. The second acquisition will be applying also 6 channels of surface EMG. So we are going to analyze for each side the rectus femoris, vastus medialis, and gastrocnemius medialis. The subject then is going to be asked to perform both jumps, so counter movement jump and squat jumps, without removing the probes, so keeping the muscle condition at the same condition, and we are going to see what happened in terms of evaluation, so we can evaluate a lot of parameters. Just to make you understand, the knowledge of a specific muscle action involved during the exercise, we will help this exercise to be the most complete during the training. An ideal sequence of muscular coordination will allow the individual to perform a task to maximum performance. And the ability of the muscle to switch on and off, it's very important. It's a very important parameter to evaluate in a dynamic evaluation. So here you can see the BTS free DGVEC. This is just we are not recording anything. You can see that we have the two platforms here, reconstructed 3D by the software. Here there is our subject. She's already wearing the EMG, because in this way we are ready for the next acquisition. And I ask my subject to jump over to be over the platform. As you can see, the platform gives us back two vectors. Maybe you will lose a little bit of real time because it's a quite heavy video. There is a 3D reconstruction. As you can see, while she's changing the barycenter, you can see the two vectors going up and down depending on which direction she's bringing the center of the body. If she goes back to the platform and we decide to make an analysis, I can show you. Let me just, okay. We can start the real acquisition. So she has to stand over the platforms, hands on hips, and when I'm going to give her the starting condition, she starts to jump. So I click on start recording, and then she can start jumping. While she stops, I stop the recording, and as you can see, here we have the three components of the first ground reaction for both platforms. So we will have with the red color, we will see the left side, with the green, the right side. Here we will have the mediolateral condition, the horizontal condition, and the vertical one. So here we can see the vertical components. We have the frontal visualization and the lateral one, the sagittal one. We can decide to save the data. So we can type the name webinar BTS, save the data, and if we want, we can decide to make further analysis and analyze the data coming from this particular application. This is an application that, as a standalone application, is quite basic. I mean, it's think to be applied in a condition in which I need to make a screening test, because I do not have any evaluation and any parameters or indexes coming from here. I mean, at least I do not have it automatically, so it's up to me to decide to analyze the data that I just acquired. But besides this, I think that it's quite important to know that this is the very first screening test. So from here I can see if there is any difference between the right and the left side in terms of pushing phase. So in all the phases of the jump I can see if there is any side prevailing over the other, and also here from the reconstruction of the vector I can see if there is any peak really way more high than the other. Once I decide from this first analysis that my subject requires a further and deeper investigation in order to detect maybe some risk of falling or risk of injuries, I switch over the other application that we are going to see. Here we are. For this evaluation, while we are talking about a sport application, I decided to use our software BTS Smart Performances. Here we can see that we usually we apply this particular software when we want to analyze a performance. So we do not talk about the clinical point of view. In that case, we use the BTS Smart Clinic, but we decide to follow the path of the sport evaluation. As you can see here, the visualization, the display is quite similar. I already create my subject that has 26 years old and weighs. Here we can see the anthropometric measure. In this case, we need just the weight of the subject, that is 41 kilograms. Okay? The test will require, new trial, a first acquisition of counter movement jump and a second acquisition of squat jump. So we are going to perform the two acquisition. I'm going to show you the video recording while we are doing our test, and we will see the analysis and the reporting, okay? So let me show you completely my screen in order not to lose any tab that is going to be open, and I will click on acquire. It takes a little while to have all the windows open. Okay. Let me show you also the cameras, and just to be sure. Okay, let me do it. Okay, new trial, counter movement jump. Just to be sure that all the system is checked and correctly working. In this case, in which we do not use the cameras, of course, the calibration will not be depending on the cameras. So here we will see the video recording, the force platforms, and every muscles that we want. In the meanwhile, my FREEEMG 100RT is already all configured with the muscles that I'm going to use. I just need to click on monitor. Okay, here the video will start. I can decide to see the vertical components of the force, and for example, right rectus femoris and left rectus femoris. While I'm ready, I ask my subject to be on the platform. We start with a counter movement jump, so I will click on capture, we will wait a few seconds, and then we will make the real jump. Okay, jump. Let's wait while we get to a stable condition and stop the acquisition. Here we have the download of the data of the EMG, and we click on save. We save the data, we still have our tab to add some notes, and now we switch over squat jump, the first one. Of course, we can do more than one counter movement jump and more than one squat jump, and then at the end we will get both the jump by jump analysis and both the average attitude of my subject. So for example, if we want to make a real test, we should have performed 3 counter movement jump and 3 squat jumps, so we have the certainty that the data will be repeatable. But in this case, we go for the squat jump. Okay, here we have the screen. We can decide to see also the recording. We click on monitor. This time, my subject will have to start with the ready bended knees in order to start from the static squat jump. Okay, so go over the platforms. Okay, this is the static condition. We click on capture. 1, 2, 3, and jump. And we stop the acquisition. We save the data. And here we are. We close the tab to acquire new trials, and here you can see that we have our counter movement jump and our squat jump. Double clicking, of course we do not have to track the trial because we didn't acquire any kinematic data. We just need to click on calculation protocol. As the smart clinic, the software is going just to ask us to select some points in which we will need to select some events, but nothing else than this. So here he's asking me that on the counter movement trial that he's here, to select the end of the trial as to detect which is the static final condition. I click with my mouse and I click OK. Left toe off. Here is when my force goes down and is practically when my vector disappears. So if we look here at the left side, we can see that when my vector disappears on the left side, I have to select the toe off. Left is strike, that is on this side. You can see that I have here my vector appearing again in correspondence of this event. Squat jump, end of the trial, final click. Here we switch over the other one. Left toe off of the squat jump. I go very quick because the elements to select are going to be the same for both jumps. Left is strike. Let's go back to the counter movement for the right toe off. Right is strike. Start of the first eccentric phase. Okay, we are talking about the counter movement jump in this case, as you can see here on the top, and the first phase of the first eccentric phase of the counter movement jump will start while the force will start to go down in this phase. So this is the point in which I select the start of the first eccentric phase. The stop of the first eccentric phase is the maximum before the real toe off, so it's going to be here. And then over the vertical power track, I need to select the stop of the second eccentric phase. The second eccentric phase is this negative portion of the curve. So at the crossing with the zero, I need to select the stop of the second eccentric phase. That is the landing phase. Same thing for the squat jump, so right off, right is strike, start of the concentric phase. In this case of the squat jump, we do not have the first eccentric phase because we already start in a loaded position. So here is the start of the concentric phase, and here is always the stop of the eccentric phase. Okay, everything is set. We can save the data, and we just need to report our analysis. So this is going to be our final report. As always, we have a preview that is going to be displayed here very fast. Jump performance evaluation, counter movement jump versus squat jump. Here we have the patient info. Second page, we have on the counter movement jump the dynamic EMG analysis. So basically, over the activity of the muscle, I have displayed the right and left toe off and heel strike, depending on which is the muscle that we are evaluating. Here on the lower part of the screen, there is the RMS analysis. So basically, for every muscle, we can see which is the average RMS for the first eccentric phase, the concentric phase, and the last eccentric phase. On the third page, we have the kinetic analysis and the jump parameters. We can see here which is the left flight time and the right flight time. Why do we do we divide into different parameters this measurement? Because we want to understand if there is any imbalance between the right and the left side. So if there is any one side that is trying to landing before than the other, and if the difference is consistent, of course we can investigate also on the muscular activity if there is any problem. In this case, we can see that if the value of the left versus right flight time is positive, the first contact on the ground is for the left side. If it's negative, the first contact on the ground is on the right side. In this case, the left side is landing before the right one. Sorry, is landing after the right one. The jump 8, calculated over the flight time theorem. And here we can see displayed the vertical force ground reaction, the acceleration, the velocity, and the power, with the legend of all the lines. Basically, we placed the toe off, the heel strike, and the starting and stop of the phases considered during the jumping. Then, depending on the phases that we just defined, we calculate the power over the weight in the eccentric phase, the concentric phase, and the last eccentric phase, and the work actually, so watt per second, during the 3 phases. Same thing for the squat jump dynamic EMG analysis, in which we can see the rectified signal with the events of toe off and heel strike for both sides, the RMS average over the different phases. You can see that in this case the squat jump is related to just 2 phases, the concentric one and the eccentric one. Then still the kinetic analysis, so also in this case we will see the same application, and in the last page we will have the comparison, the direct comparison, counter movement jump versus squat jump. So we have the comparison between what is the muscular activity and the jump parameters in one case and the other. In this case, you can see that all the parameters has a standard deviation that is 0. This is because we used just one acquisition of the counter movement jump and one acquisition of the squat jump. In case that we acquire, for example, 3 counter movement jumps and 3 squat jumps, of course the standard deviation will be different than 0. What is important that is coming out from this page is the elasticity index. So at the end, knowing all these parameters of the 2 jumps allowed us to define which is the elasticity index. The elasticity index is an index that comes out from the comparison between the counter movement jump and the squat jump. In particular, is done with this formula, that is counter movement jump less squat jump, all divided by the squat jump, and then make a percentage. In case when this parameter is negative, is because the squat jump was more performing than the counter movement jump. So when the performance of the squat jump is better than the counter movement jump, we get an elasticity index that is negative. In the last page, as usual, we record the video and we show the video. Okay. Of course, this video can be visible if we save the HTML file. They are going to be as single frame if we print the PDF. Of course, once we close the preview, we can scroll all the pages. You can see here what we saw before. And this is the result of the jump performance evaluation. You can truly understand how different it is to use one system or both of them. Of course, while I had a new system, I will have also new information. So basically, I will have the chance to increase the amount of data coming from this analysis.